What's up guys, my name's Stu, and today we're going to be talking about 10 ships that people actually want in sMarket ship bundles. sMarket, not exactly everyone's favorite topic about Star Trek Online, but love it or hate it, it is the only way to get lockbox and promo ships unlocked on your whole account. There have been a number of sMarket ship bundles in the game already at this point, some that were pretty good, and some that just kind of left you with this impression of, what the heck were they thinking? So, a while back I went to the channel's community page and asked you guys, what do you guys want to see in a sMarket bundle? What would make it worth it to you to actually buy one of these? A few of you just said none because sMarket is a cheap cash grab, and that's not helpful. Why would you think that's helpful? That's not helpful at all. But several of you had actual answers too, so I'm going to be going over those, and plus a few answers of my own. Before I start, I just want to elaborate that I'm only going over lockbox, low buy, and promo ships because, you know, those are the ones actually in the ship bundles. Event ships, those are kind of a different thing from sMarket. Anyway, let's get to it with what was probably the most requested ship from all of you guys, the Atlas prototype Dreadnought. Hardly the most remarkable ship in the game, but what makes the Atlas so popular is its console, the famous DPRM. This is a very powerful console for both damage output and survival, so having it unlocked on your whole account would be a huge convenience for setting up alternate characters. I should probably just say this now, most of the ships on this list are going to be on here for the sake of the convenience factor, meaning that they come with really helpful consoles or starship traits that are really good for setting up characters. And that's why the next ship on this list is the Zindy Primate Adileth Dreadnought. Again, this is another ship that isn't all that remarkable on its own, but most of its value does come from its starship trait, Super Weapon Ingenuity. This trait is a must-have for Beam Overload builds because it is the extension trait for the firing mode Beam Overload. Beam Overload builds are pretty easy to put together, but the starship trait being on a low-buy ship does make things more difficult. So being able to put this on your whole account would be a huge convenience factor. Next is the D7 America Worker Flight Deck Carrier, aka the Discovery version of the D7. Now, this one's actually a good ship. Being a America Worker ship, it's really good for energy weapon builds, but most of its value actually comes from its starship trait, the Ruin of Our Enemies. This is a very powerful starship trait used on meta DPS builds, so again, having this unlocked on your whole account would be a huge convenience factor for setting up DPS builds. The next one on the list is another pretty decent ship, the Deimos Pilot Escort. Being a pilot ship, it's far from the best ship in the game for DPS, but it does still have a decent setup. But the ship's main value comes from its console, Immolating Phaser Lance. It's basically a console that is a rapid-firing lance that deals impressive amounts of phaser damage, which makes it great for a phaser build. However, it does have another use when paired with a certain starship trait, Universal Designs. Paired together, these two are a really great meta combo for DPS. Universal Designs brings us to the next one on the list, the Crossfield Refit. And that's because that's where the starship trait comes from. The Crossfield Refit itself actually isn't that bad either. Being a America Worker ship, it's hardly the best science ship because America Worker and science builds don't really go that well together. But being a spearhead, it actually makes it pretty decent for just a normal Beam Overload build, or at the very least a very science-heavy Beam Overload build, so you could do some pretty interesting combinations with this ship. Now, if you're wanting something for an actual proper science build, these next two ships are something to keep in mind. The first is the Tholian Xtomi. The Xtomi is another ship with fairly unremarkable stats. Again, America Worker seating on a science ship, it's not good. Cryptic, please buff America Worker or stop doing that. But the Xtomi's value comes from its starship trait, Improved Photonic Officer, which is a must-have for science builds. For a long time, this was the only thing that allowed science builds to reduce their bridge officer cooldowns. An Aux to Bat build does not work on a science build because, well, they need that Aux power where it is, so that made this trait essential. The Boimler effect has made this part of the trait a bit less essential, but the exotic bonus damage buff it also gives still makes this a must-have trait, which is why being able to unlock it on your whole account would be very helpful. The other one on here that's for the sake of science builds is the Telstra Adapted Battle Cruiser. The ship itself isn't that bad. It actually has a unique bridge officer layout that has a universal commander level seat. It's not something you see very often. But this is another one that's mainly here for its starship trait, Assimilated Power Conduits. This trait is really great for buffing the crit chance and crit severity of your exotic damage abilities, which is why it's really great for a science build. Next up is the Terran warship, which this is actually a pretty popular ship. It's a warship that's set up really well for energy weapons and also has a unique bridge officer layout because it has 2 commander level seats, which again, very unusual. But again, the main reason this thing is here is because of its starship trait, Terran Goodbye, which is a really great DPS trait for pretty much any kind of build. Now, that is the last of the ships that are just here for the convenience factor, meaning they're just here for a trait and or console that they have. I couldn't think of any other ships that were single character unlocks that also had anything that was super high demand on them, at least nothing that wasn't already in another Muds bundle. So the last two selections on this list are just here because I like them. The first being the 26th century Temporal Heavy Dreadnoughts. These ships definitely aren't any sort of meta, but they're big and they're fun and they're goofy, and I just like them, and I would like to have better access to them on my whole account. Particularly in a way that would give me access to all three, so that way I can put them on whatever faction I want. And it's a similar story with the 23rd century Tier 6 ships, so that's the T6 versions of the Constitution, D7, and the Talus. At least the original ones, the Temporal ones that came out back with Agents of Yesteryear. I've said many times that the Temporal Light Cruiser is one of my favorite ships in the game, both because of the fact that it's two different Constitution class ships, and because it actually has fantastic stats. So being able to have that ship unlocked on my whole account would be something really special, and if I can get the D7 and Talus along with it, all the better. So yeah, those are 10 ships that I think people actually want to see in sMarket ship bundles. I don't know if this video will help or hurt this cause, but it's something I felt like ranting about. Obviously, there are some people who wanted other ships for sMarket ship bundles. I just wanted to stick to 10 for this list and actually stick to 10 ships for this list. I have so many of these videos where, you know, it's like, oh, 10 ships for whatever this, and I ended up doing like 14 or 15 ships because I just can't help myself sometimes. No, I'm sticking to the number this time. Anyway, if you have any suggestions for ships you'd like to see in sMarket bundles, let me know down in the comments down below, and also while you're down there, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and that bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button or the super thanks button. There's also the link to the merch store in the description. Either way, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.